Welcome to Newshour. Now, the long-awaited declassification of JFK assassination files has once again ignited debates over what really happened in Dallas on November the 22nd, 1963. With each new release, fresh details emerge, but the core mystery remains. Was Lee Harvey Oswald truly a lone gunman, or did a larger CIA conspiracy lurk in the shadows? Well, the latest trove of documents unveiled under pressure from researchers and historians sheds light on intelligence agency operations, surveillance of Oswald before the assassination, and potential foreign involvement. Some claim the files confirm existing theories, while others argue they merely fuel more speculation. Let's go to Washington, D.C. now, where Kate Fisher has the latest.
Well, Guy, the National Archives published the documents at the order of President Donald Trump. Now, they're mostly full of information that experts say they already knew, but there are some new insights, like the unveiling of American assets who spied on Cuban leader Fidel Castro, and Soviets feeding information about Kennedy's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, to US professors abroad, and the inner workings of CIA spycraft. And that includes how the intelligence agency placed spies in foreign countries under the guise of working for the State Department. Now, many of the files show the investigations that were already happening into Lee Harvey Oswald's time in the Soviet Union and how his movements were tracked in the months leading up to Kennedy's assassination in Dallas in 1963. But anybody expecting to find proof that the CIA conspired with Lee Harvey Oswald will not find it. The documents do offer a window into the climate of fear at the time surrounding US relations with the Soviet Union shortly after the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, which of course nearly led to a nuclear war. President Donald Trump signalled that the release of these documents would include a huge trove of unredacted records available to the public for the first time. But so far, nothing has changed the long-held findings that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in assassinating President Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963, while he rode in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas. Kate Fisher for A News in Washington.
Thanks, Kate. New details emerging there then, but still a lack of concrete conclusions. Well, joining me now from Nashville to dig into this new evidence a little deeper is the lawyer, writer and talk show host, Steve Gill. Mr. Gill, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Guy.
Let's get right into this then. What should we make of these newly declassified files? Genuinely revealing or just another distraction from the full truth?
I think some of the revelations are, as Kate pointed out, not really surprising. The idea that the CIA was embedding CIA operatives in State Department posts in foreign nationalities, that's the worst kept intelligence secret perhaps in history. But I do think that the fact that the CIA has worked so hard to keep these documents hidden for so long makes their hands look even dirtier in terms of their involvement in the JFK assassination. And then the involvement of Mossad and Israeli agents in the process, I think, is a bit of a revelation that has been being hidden for a long time. So the fact that these documents have been hidden so long makes some of those parties look even more guilty.
It's interesting, isn't it? That if Oswald was under surveillance, as it seems is the case, before the assassination, why on earth wasn't he stopped?
Well, and there are some of the documents that tend to indicate that Russia was actually advising the U.S. To beware of this assassination attempt. Also, I said one of the documents appears to be a warning about 9/11 before it happened. So despite the Russia fears that America has been embroiled in for so many decades, it does appear that Russia was trying to help prevent this assassination and perhaps 9/11 as well. So I think those are some of the more surprising and yet less media attention items in these documents. I'm not sure who else was involved. And again, you've got a lot of documents that are still redacted. You've got a lot of documents that are still being withheld. No pun intended, the real smoking gun may still not have been released.
And Steve, JFK obviously a hugely popular figure, not just in the United States, but all around the world. What was it, though, about his policy stances that possibly made him a target of forces beyond just a lone gunman?
Well, like President Trump, he was disrupting things. He was heading down a path in the international arena to increase closer relationships with Russia. He was looking at UFO information and wanting to release that. And his own Vice President, Lyndon Johnson, was at odds with him on a bunch of very serious policy issues. So he was making a lot of enemies by being disruptive in the same way that we've seen President Trump as well. When you are making a change to, they didn't call it the deep state then, but when you're challenging the deep state, and in this case, whether it was Mossad and the connections between the U.S. and Israel, the CIA, other big financial and foreign interests, when you're disrupting that, the deep state, whether you call it that or not, will push back.
And also, in terms of the process, Steve, I think a lot of people would be curious about why it takes so long for documents, reports on assassination attempts, not just JFK, but other incidents, to remain classified for so long, 40, 50, 60 years. What's the thinking behind that? Is it about political will, or is there a standard process?
Well, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it is a cover-up. I mean, again, we've got Martin Luther King assassination details that have never been released, RFK Jr. We have the COVID investigation and the role of pharmaceutical companies in that, and the redaction of different information that should have been known by the public when they were demanding that people get a vaccine that hadn't been thoroughly tested. They wanted to keep those documents covered up for 40 or 50 years. Again, transparency is the best solution if you want to prevent not just conspiracy theories, but hiding the truth. And I think we saw that certainly here as well. When I went to work in the first Bush administration and then worked in international trade for the Clinton administration for a while as well, I was so excited, Guy, when I got my security clearance and was going to get the access to the CIA daily reports. Yeah, I rushed into work early that day, and I didn't see anything in the reports that wasn't already in the Washington Post. I wanted to know who killed JFK, what's it, Area 51. None of the good stuff was in there. So even if you have security clearances, and I think even as a president, you don't really get to see the good stuff.
So, I mean, that begs the question, Steve, does the good stuff actually exist? Is it anywhere at all, or is it only available to a very select group?
Well, it's available to a very select group that have an interest in keeping it hidden and perhaps profiting from it. I mean, we see that with our members of Congress here in the U.S. They're allowed to engage in insider trading and using inside information to profit hugely in the stock market. So there are those in the intelligence community that have the opportunity to get out of government and then go basically sell the secrets to their new employers. We have people that are keeping security clearance after they leave our government because they're very valuable as an asset to foreign entities and to corporations in the U.S. and internationally. So there are a lot of people who have access to these secrets, and they benefit personally from them. If they're not secret, their value to those individuals goes down dramatically.
And Steve, there's been different views on the intelligence agencies, whether they may have actively misled the Warren Commission to protect their own interests. Just give us your view, your analysis of that.
Again, a lot of the documents that might reveal more are still being hidden. But the activities around that assassination and the investigation, I think, again, raise a lot of red flags about the fact that there's been so much sketchy behavior in terms of they cleaned up the vehicle that Kennedy was riding in immediately before a complete forensic study was done. The details of Oswald's background and recruitment by the former Soviet Union, those things are still being hidden from view. They were certainly hidden from the Warren Commission. How do you do a thorough investigation when the facts and the truth are being held back from the investigators? So I think the fact that these documents reveal that that's what was taking place makes the Warren Commission report even more suspect.
And you're obviously in the United States at the moment and following developments very, very closely. What's your sense of any shift in public opinion? Do you think these recent revelations, these newly released documents, have changed public perception of the assassination at all?
I think the documents still have not been thoroughly examined and reported by our media here. So, unless you're really following this closely, starting to review some of the documents that are not redacted, most Americans really don't know the full details. I think that it's also confirmed what people believed, kind of maybe in the dark recesses of their hearts and minds. They believed that our government could have and might have killed John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King and RFK. So I think there was kind of a suspicion that this is what happened. And for those that are watching, it just seems to have merely confirmed it. I think the other real issue is how much was Israel and the Mossad involved in this. And I think that's also being tamped down because you have relations with the U.S. and Israel that are very important. You have very chaotic times going on in the Middle East. And I think those that are trying to repress that kind of information are trying to act in real time today rather than examine what happened at the Kennedy assassination and who all might have been involved in that.
And finally, just looking forward then, do you think we will ever reach a consensus, a definitive conclusion on what happened? And also, do you yourself have a hypothesis on what may have been behind this?
Again, I think that JFK was a disruptor in many different levels. You had those that had, the mob interest. You had the Mossad. You had the CIA. You had other things that we may not even be aware of that he was in the process of dealing with that were creating enemies that were willing to take him out. And I think that that's why we should get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so that we can prevent something like this from happening in the future. Again, you've got President Trump, who is a disruptor as well, and we've seen at least 2 assassination attempts on him. And the questions arise of have federal agencies, have the FBI and others been involved in that? These documents from the Kennedy assassination, to a large extent, prove our government itself is willing to take out our own leaders if it serves their interest. And I'm not sure that's changed since the JFK assassination.
Well, strong views on this on all sides. 62 years later, thousands of new documents, and yet it's a story where clearly a certain degree of mystery still remains. Steve, many, many thanks for speaking to A News. Well,
Thanks, Guy. I'll talk with you again soon.
Look forward to it, Steve. Look forward to it. Well, that is all we have time for on this edition of Newshour. Please do stay with A News for more news and analysis. And from all of us here in Baku, thank you for watching.